Good morning. My name is Theo Edmonds, and I'm the co-founding director of Ideas. We're a contemporary art chamber of commerce located in Louisville, Kentucky. And I want to welcome you this morning to the second live stream podcast of the Who's Louisville program. The Who's Louisville program is located at Zephyr Gallery, and it's a partnership with Leo Magazine. And for the next 2 months, we are here exploring a community dialogue, discovering who is Louisville today. And with us today for our second installment of this podcast, we have Ashley Miller. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Ashley, you're let me see if I get this right, Miss University of Louisville, Miss Kentucky, a nurse practitioner working on her PhD, you're a basketball player at Berea College, and now you're a budding healthcare entrepreneur.
Yes.
You are the perfect member for Ideas Chamber of Commerce, and I'll have an application form for you afterwards.
Okay, that's fine.
So the show is called Who's Louisville? And from your point of view, who is Louisville right now?
Gosh. I think it kind of is reflected in all the stuff that you just said about me. I think Louisville is a huge melting pot of ideas. Look, how about that? Yeah, I think that the one thing I love about Louisville and the one reason why I've been determined not to leave is just there's so much growth, there's so many opportunities for entrepreneurship, and I think that's really embraced in the city, so I don't think there's a simple answer for who Louisville is. It's just a melting pot. That's
great. So what is the most interesting thing that you've seen or heard or read about in the last month or so?
So, I read the Perry Journal every morning, old school style, like from actual paper, and I read about a florist out, I think it's out Dixie somewhere, that decided that she wanted to bring more business into her floral shop, so she started serving food. So it's a florist / deli / smoothie shop, and I am determined to go visit that place.
I'll go with you when you
Please.
go there. So I mean, that kind of hybrid organization, we're seeing popping up a lot around Louisville these days, even more so, I think, than maybe even a lot of our competitor cities. And so that kind of interesting approach to things, I think, requires somebody to really be engaged into not only maybe what their business is, but what the needs of their community are.
For sure.
So what do you think are some of the biggest needs that you see in Louisville right now?
How long is the show?
We've got as long as you want.
Well, I think it goes in a couple of different areas. So if we're, from my perspective in health, and then I guess that helps me to talk about the business that I'm looking at opening, there are a lot of women's health places, but they primarily cater to pregnant women. So there aren't very many places besides like a Planned Parenthood or something like that that actually caters to the needs of non-pregnant women throughout the lifespan. So that's definitely something that me as a woman look at. Another thing that I'm hoping to write about soon in Leo is birthing options for women in the state of Kentucky is different than other places, of course, like in New York, where they have midwives like all over the place. So that's something I'm interested in researching and writing about. I mean, I'd like to have kids in the next, 5 years or so, but that's definitely something that I think a lot of women don't pay attention to until they get to that point in life. I grew up in the West End, so I'm always interested in development there. It definitely bothers me that we spend a lot of time talking about the design of a Walmart versus the fact that people need jobs.
That's right.
So I think that that's an issue. I really hope that in the near future we see more development and more business in the West End. So I'll stop there, I guess.
So let's continue down that line, because I think that's really interesting. It's something that we here in our organization spend a lot of time thinking about, how the creative industry and the artists can help with job skills training and workforce development ourselves. What are some of the growth areas that you think in the jobs market that exist in Louisville right now?
So when you mean growth areas, you mean like what are the needs, or?
Well, yeah. What are the needs? I'll give you an example. Like we're working. One of our partners is Youth Build Louisville, and they have a youth development model that works with young people, and they have 2 tracks. One is a construction track, and one is an environmental services track.
Sure.
And while those young adults are there, they get life skills training, job skills training, and then they learn while they do and get paid while they do in an apprenticeship model, and they find their way to the job market with the support of a lot of people around them. So in terms of that, you know, I was next week we'll be talking with Congressman Yarmouth about the ACA, and there was a recent report that just came out in Kentucky that shows that there's a huge potential in the healthcare jobs market that are not necessarily PhD level jobs, but are really good jobs. So I was wondering if you were seeing that around.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, especially I think healthcare is probably the widest market right now because of the ACA, and we have so many more people now that are entering the realm of healthcare that have not been there before.
Sure.
So I definitely think healthcare is huge, but I think like the old trades, like my grandfather's a master carpenter. There aren't very many people that are going into that. I'm trying to get my brother to do it so he can fix stuff in my house. But there's just not many people going into trades like that anymore, and I think that's a huge opportunity.
I agree.
One of the things, and Ashley has a wonderful article. She's been writing a bi-weekly column for Leo now. It's Miller at the Mic. I mean, you can tell why I wanted her to bring her perspective and voice to Leo. But this week and just this morning on the racks, she has an article about education and about maximizing learning times for kids, and from early on all the way through school, and how obviously there's no silver bullet and there's no easy solution, but in so many other ways, and in some cases in the U.S., in one specific charter school of note, but also in Asia, they spend so much more time learning, whether that's in the classroom or around learning opportunities, and that's one area that education is I know dear to Ashley, and she's. I would say that just echoing one thing that I've heard from you in the last day.
So, speaking of education, you went to Berea.
I did.
And you were a basketball player while you were at Berea, right?
That's how I got to Berea in the first place.
Oh, really? That's wonderful. So Berea is a really fantastic institution and school that, in some ways, was an alternative educational model when it first began. And what do you think right now, if you had $1 million to implement one idea that could change the way that education is taught, where would you focus on spending that money?
Wow. So in post-secondary education, or
wherever you think the most need is.
Oh gosh. Well, what I would do initially is to level the playing field in all the public schools here in Jefferson County. And so I went to Manual, I went to Mazik Middle School, so I'm definitely a product of the public school system. I know, Smoketown. But what I realized is living in the West End, being able to go to those schools, some of my neighbors did not have the same situations, and some of them didn't have books to bring home, and they weren't doing the same level of stuff that I was doing. Not necessarily that I was any smarter than them, but I had more resources than they did because of the schools that I was able to go to, and I don't think that's fair. So something that I've always said is that years of coaching determine the quality of education that you receive. So I would start by making sure the resources were there, because I don't think, kids should be able to go to school anywhere and be able to access the things that they need to follow their dreams. Because I'm definitely, I guess, my life basically demonstrates the fact that all kids need is a chance.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh, sure.
What is something that Louisville could learn right now from national events?
Oh gosh. Don't laugh, because he's probably thinking that. Wow. I think that Louisville can learn that Well, let's go back. There were a lot of conversations around Louisville around the time of the things that were going on in Ferguson, Missouri, and stuff that happened in New York, like, that could never happen in Louisville. But I think that what we learned from situations like that, I'm sure no one ever thought in Ferguson, Missouri that these situations would happen, and then they now have all these protesters coming in, and police in riot gear in the middle of the street. Like, no one ever saw that coming, but I think what we learned from situations like that is that we have to be more proactive and engage in those conversations all the time about that there's always going to be people that feel suppressed in a society, and what are their needs. And like in Louisville, people need jobs, people need quality education. Those are things that we have to address before it gets to the point where where bad things happen.
I noticed there a lot of things that I read in several different larger cities these days. There's a really growing conversation that both art and education, and culture and education are human rights. And I was just wondering what you think the role of art is in the city of Louisville.
I think art is amazing. I think it's a personal expression of so much. So for me, I like to write, obviously, and that is a really good way for me to express my feelings when I can't, like, do something reckless. But I think music is that way too. It's therapeutic, and something I always wish that I had learned growing up was how to play the piano. And I just think art and the arts, even dancing, it's a release, I think, and I think that there's an amazing place for that, because I think it just makes your life more well-rounded. I've never been artistic in any capacity besides like fashion design. I can do that and put clothes together. However, singing, no. Drawing and painting, no. I actually did a painting as a wine and art in DC for my cousin's birthday. So I don't know if it was a wine or I actually did a good job.
Doesn't hurt.
You know, I think probably maybe it was a little bit, because a lot of people, the thing that stops them from creative expression is themselves. And, you know, whether it's a bourbon or whether it's a glass of wine, sometimes that helps release inhibitions a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a judgment thing. And even in art, I think in a different way, we used to always talk about nursing as an art but a science also. And I think that is very real, because like with my job, there's very much of it that is scientific and is very medical sometimes in the model that we use. However, the art of how I deal with my patients and how we engage with one another and communicate, that experience I think is art.
And just listening to the conversation too, kind of one of the things that that keeps occurring to me is that to be an artist, you know, it is an expression of what's going on, whatever that emotion is, whatever creativity that you feel you need to express in whatever way, whether it's singing or creating. But if you're going to take that step and actually deliver some piece of art, it takes courage. And you know, whether it's running for office, writing, putting yourself out there, or even dealing with, you know, health cases and people, which, you know, when it's a health issue, it's very personal, whoever it is, and you know, it takes courage to want to even do that. And so there's and the pageantry, and you know, your experiences with that you told me about really kind of demonstrate a different side of even the courage and the background of pageantry than I would have ever thought. You know, I mean, I think Donald Trump ruined it to a certain extent for everybody. But it's, you know, that is a combination of, you know, of courage, talent, artistic beauty, and you know, desire to put yourself out there.
Well, Dan, to combine the art and education conversation here, I think both y'all are hitting on something that we've noticed quite a lot here in our organization, is that our educational system is set up to train young people that making a mistake is bad, that failure is bad, that it always has to be correct. And So what we have now is in many ways, we don't have real conversations because people are not really putting their full self out there because they're afraid of being seen making a mistake. So somehow we've turned bravery to express, to get to that place of trying something new into a bad thing. And I think one of the things that artists can loan to the city of Louisville is our methodology, because we practice that being in that uncertain place. Every stroke of a painting, you make 1,000 little choices on your way to a painting. Each one of those potentially a disaster, but potentially a breakthrough. So there's a bravery in that act. So let's translate that now back to the business world. You talk about the art that is involved in healthcare and science. What is the relationship between art and business, or art and politics, to go even further? And what can business and politics learn from this kind of conversation?
I think what you touched on about the willingness to just go for it and see what happens, I think has a huge place in the business world, definitely in politics. I think that communication to me is an art, and especially in the realm of politics, I think being able to communicate sometimes complex issues in a way that people can understand, and then making them feel comfortable enough to talk to you and be able to approach you about the things that are going on with them, sometimes which are very personal and intimate conversations. I think that's an art. And I think just dealing with people in any capacity for me and for my business will be the same. So for me, I think the science will be what we're doing with and to people in the healthcare environment. I think the art is the way we do it, and even I even think of artistic expression as to what we want them to feel when they walk into the door. Like, what colors are the rooms? What do the couches and chairs look like? Like, what vibe is set for them when they come in? I think that definitely is artistic. And then business is, of course, you got to make money doing it.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
What is your definition of a successful Louisville? What does that look like?
Oh man, tough question.
There's no wrong answer.
No wrong answer. Right. It's, you just step out there, make the stroke. Right.
That's right.
I think a successful Louisville is one in which everyone, no matter what zip code, what part of the city they're in, has the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. Whether that's being an artist, or whether that's being a doctor, or a writer, or what have you, that we have opportunities for them to grow and flourish here.
Do you think that we do a good job in the city of Louisville of putting all of our stakeholders in a community around the same table for a conversation, or do we need to work on that?
I think we need to work on that. I think that there are multiple people all over the city doing all kinds of amazing things, but I definitely think there's a lot of room for collaboration, and there's a lot of room for growth in that area. And I think sometimes if we put all the great minds of the city and all of the philanthropists of the city down at one table and say, these are the issues that we're facing in our city, how do we attack them together in a combined way, I think we'd be more effective.
And just sort of thinking that out loud, I know I'll tie it into somebody that you know dearly, but a mutual friend. But I think that there is a tremendous opportunity in this city for anybody to meet anybody, whether it's the mayor, whether it's CEO, or from the top down. It's a really accessible city. However, I think publicly, whether it's the media or social media, we tend to become really hyper-focused on a few key people. And sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly, but that really creates a lot of background noise. In many ways, it's kind of like Brian Williams. Sure. What's the real issue here? I mean, of course, there are serious questions that need to be asked and serious things that need to be addressed, but again, there are other really important issues in the world. It's not just about one person's mistake, because we've all got mistakes, and
Sure.
and so when we keep going back to the same source for information, for opinions, for whatever it is, you miss out on other opportunities. And I keep thinking about Bruce, Pastor Bruce, and dear friend of mine. I'd let you categorize him in your life. Your pastor.
I absolutely adore him.
He's my golfing buddy when he gets a chance.
And which church
he
is?
Bates.
Bates.
Okay. So he's doing tremendous things. He is a tremendous advocate. He's got the biggest heart of anybody I know, present company excluded. And it's just, he is somebody that really, that this community could use. I mean, he would be an invaluable source for this community, and somebody that I think is sort of an underutilized asset when you keep going back to the same people for commentary on issues. I think that we in society at large do a poor job of diversifying our assets.
I agree with that. We work actually a lot with Bates and the Community Development Corporation, and Hannah Drake is a poet that has been at Bates for 15 years in administration, and she's working with us on our Roots and Wings project. And what we are doing with that project is taking the voices of a lot of really young, talented Louisville musicians, dancers, DJs, spoken word artists, and building a structure around them to lift up their voice and let them own it for themselves. One of the things we're tackling with that is racism, and we're tackling the school to prison pipeline of young African American men through the Zones of Hope project. What are you seeing are some of the most pressing needs on maybe say, since you work a lot with women in the women's healthcare arena, what are some of the most difficult to talk about, but yet very fundamental issues that we should be thinking about as a city there?
So he's looking at me like, don't do it. No, but the first thing that pops in my mind is reproductive rights. And I think a lot of that is based in education. There's so many conversations that I have with girls, teenagers and young adult women and older, that absolutely have no idea how their body works, that are trying to make good decisions about trying to make good decisions about their sexuality, but don't really know how. So I think that there's definitely room to grow in terms of like what we're teaching our kids in school in terms of sex education, and for women, especially being more assertive. That's something that I've been finding in my research study that I'm working on for my dissertation, is that teenage girls that are assertive about their future and their goals, what they really know they want to do in the future, the ones that are able to say no and mean it, the ones that are empowered with information, so how to protect themselves, but still embrace who they are and plan for the fact that they want to be sexually active. Like, those are hard conversations, and most parents don't want to have them. Sure. My parents did not. My mom's like, what? Sex? We don't do that. So those are the hard conversations I feel like we need to have, especially with girls. And I think the sooner, like the earlier in their 8th, 9th grade year, when they're starting to be exposed to those types of things in school, I think that's probably one of the areas I would absolutely love to see us do a better job.
Well, you should come back tonight, because tonight from 5:30 to 7:30 we have two entrepreneurs who are in town who are developing a entrepreneurial company to have sexual education back in the schools, back in the communities, and they're gathering tonight to launch their new entrepreneurial endeavor. Awesome. It's from 5:30 to 7:30, and so if you're interested in this topic, tonight would be a perfect place for you to be, and all of those who are watching us on this live stream. So, who are some of the unexpected or unknown people, and unknown meaning that are not in the headlines every day in Louisville, that you just really think are doing a fantastic job in changing the city in whatever way that they're operating in?
Say Bruce again.
Yeah, I would definitely say my pastor, Bruce Williams. I think that it's interesting because I started going to Bates maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been to so many churches in Louisville, like when I was visiting and stuff, but I felt like after her sermon, I said, that man is anointed. Like, he is an anointed preacher and teacher, and it doesn't matter what he's talking about. Like, I feel like I learned something that I can apply and make myself a better Ashley every single time I hear him speak. And I agree, he has a heart of gold. And it's funny, like, during the campaign, he would come and be like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? And I really appreciated that because, like, he didn't know me from Adam. I'm just, like, this little girl in his church. But I think that he does a lot that falls under the radar and that people don't often get to really see, or at least maybe his name is not attached to it. Maybe it's in BCDC, like you said. But I think all of those things stem from Bruce Williams, and I think he is an absolutely amazing person.
That's wonderful. Who are some of the maybe young people that, because I know especially as you, I'm sure you were running for office last fall, you probably got to meet a lot of young people. Can you think of anyone that just really pops out in your mind and you say, this kid has got it, he understands it, or she understands it, and is going somewhere?
Well, the first person that pops in my mind is Amelia Gondara,
Absolutely.
who is also a former Miss U of L, but
she's on our board.
You know what? I think I knew that. I think I knew that. But
that was not planned, y'all.
It was not planned. But I think that she's amazing, just in general. And I was thinking about, like, when you were talking about art earlier, the fact that she's just, like, this amazing ballerina, and I just get mesmerized watching her, but that has not anything to do with why I think she's amazing. But the fact that she's an engineer, and then she's a beauty queen, and she's a ballerina, like, she's just... I can't say that word on TV probably, but she's great.
She's not good. I think there are a lot of women in this city that fit that profile.
Absolutely.
You're one, she's one. I mean, every single day it's almost, we're blessed and honored to be meeting some of them through our work here.
I thought of one more person.
Okay.
I should talk to him, but Justin Patton, he is, do you know Justin? He is a trainer and teacher. He does a lot of stuff with, like, Taco Bell and Yum and stuff, but he teaches basically people how to present their best self to the world.
Great.
And he does a lot of body language coaching. Like, basically anything ridiculous going on in my life, I call Justin, and he coaches me through it. But I think Justin's in his early 30s. He is dynamic. His energy is absolutely amazing. I'm on him about writing a book because I feel like he has so much to say. Like, he's like one of those people that speaks in quotes, like, that you want to tweet all the time. So I think that he's somebody that is doing a lot of amazing things in his professional life that is really working to do more with youth and trying to teach them how to be aware of what they're presenting. Because he always talks about how do you want to show up? Like, what do you want people to think when they actually lay eyes on you in terms of your physical appearance, how you look, your confidence, your body language, all those things. So he's, like, watched me give talks and be like, so, can I give you some feedback? And I'm like, yes, please. So even little things like, I normally have my arms crossed. That's just comfortable for me. It's like, well, it looks insecure. Okay. But I think he's amazing.
So... You were talking about something just then that I want to dig into a little bit. What is your own view of yourself at your highest expression of that self?
Wow. Well, you know, if I'm being completely honest with you and my own view of myself, what are you laughing at?
All honesty. I've known you to be anything but honest.
Well, that's true. I am inside of me, when I look in the mirror, I still see the 12-year-old little girl in the West End that's trying to make a difference. And so I feel like, I think probably the greatest thing about me, but the thing that I probably could do better at is I don't necessarily always give myself credit for what I've achieved so far in life, because I feel like I have so much further to go, and I have so many more things to do, and there's more people that I want to impact. So I think I still see myself as like on this journey, but so far away from the apex of that journey.
What would you say to that little 12-year-old girl now, if you could say one thing to her?
Ooh, Laura, I would tell her a bunch of things. But I would tell my 12-year-old self not to embrace limiting beliefs, because I think for a long time I had these dreams of things that I wanted to be, and living in the circumstances that I didn't always think that they were, they could become reality. And I did have people, whether even in my own family, that loved me, were giving me advice like, well, you know, why don't you just get a job? Why do you want to do all those things? And not that they meant anything negative by it, but I think stifled me for a period in life, and it took me until maybe I was 25 or 26 to be confident enough to trust my own journey and to trust the vision that I had for myself. So if I were to tell my 12-year-old self anything, I would say to go with your gut and just follow what it is that you know you're supposed to be doing.
Mayor, governor, or senator, where can you do the most good if you were in one of those roles?
Are you asking which one I want to be, or? We're doing transparency.
You can't say
today.
D, none of the above.
None of the
You can't say
above. No, governor, and that is a dream that I have. Why? I think it gives you a platform to affect the most change with the most people. Like, I'm a Kentucky girl through and through. Like, I absolutely love the state. Like I was telling you before, I spent my weekend in Berea, in the mountains, just like in my like zen. And I was thinking, like, this is the only place in Kentucky where I can have like eat, pray, love, like all in the same weekend.
Sure.
But
there's your slogan for your cafe.
There it is. But I think that people ask me all the time, like, do you just love politics? Absolutely not. Like, I don't think there's anything about politics to love. However, the platform that you are afforded as an elected official is one that is priceless, because it allows people to listen to your voice, which is amazing. And I think that's something I learned in pageants, is using a position of influence to affect change in those around you. Like, that I think is amazing. So if I were to pick one of those, it would be governor, because I'm all about Kentucky folks.
So the last female governor, and the only one, is Martha Lane Collins. Have you gotten to talk to Governor Collins?
I've met her once. I actually had, I got to see Crit Llewellyn yesterday, who's our lieutenant governor, and I said, I need to pick your brain, like, soon. And she was like, oh, sure, anytime. But I've not gotten to sit down with Martha Lane. I think, especially in the last year, she's been kind of like crazy busy with other campaigns and stuff that she's been a part of. But
she's a phenomenal lady. And when I was growing up, I was a clogger.
Really?
And during the
Kentucky State Dance, will you do it for us?
my father was in the legislature and authored that bill that made clogging the Kentucky. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And yeah, maybe I will.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to see it?
I do, actually.
All right.
Yes.
I love it.
Woo! That's awesome.
So
I have to tell you, I had no idea what clogging was until I entered the pageant world. And there's a lot of girls from like Winchester area and Eastern Kentucky that do clogging as their talent. And one time this girl came out and said, for the official state dance. And I was like, why did I learn how to do that? But yeah, I love clogging.
that's great. She was, Martha Lane was such an amazing woman and a great first female governor. But you and I hadn't met till today. I got to tell you, if you need somebody to work on your campaign, sign me up.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your honesty and your openness. And Aaron, thank you for setting this up.
No, I love this. When asked who would be a good fit, in any number of ways, Ashley was at the top of mine. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity.
Now I've got to take him to breakfast.
Breakfast is on me. I couldn't do it too, but no, I appreciate it. And it's always fun.
So thank you all for tuning in with us. As always, you can revisit this podcast by going online to ideaslouisville.com, and we'll see you next week.